Graduation ceremonies are louder than they should be. Not just the applause, the music, the announcements, the constant rustle of programs and camera shutters. But underneath all of it there's another kind of noise, the soft chaos of families moving toward each other, voices layered with pride and relief. I remember standing in the aisle after the ceremony ended, watching clusters of people merge together like magnets finding their pairs. Parents hugging their kids. Grandparents wiping their eyes. Someone nearby shouting a name over and over again. My name had already been called an hour earlier. I had walked across the stage, shaken a professor's hand, and accepted the diploma envelope with the careful smile you learn to wear in official photos. I'd looked out into the audience when I did it. Not because I expected to see them, but because some small, stubborn part of me still wanted to check. Their seats were easy to find. Row 14, middle section. I had chosen them myself weeks earlier when the tickets were mailed out. 2 empty chairs, 2 folded programs, and the diploma envelope I placed there afterward. I didn't slam it down or make a point of it. No dramatic gesture, I just set it across the seats like it belonged there more than it did with me. A few weeks before graduation, my parents had called to explain their situation. The explanation had a cheerful tone. Your brother finally did it. He bought a sailing package through the Caribbean. Something he had been dreaming about for years. A long trip hopping between islands. Apparently the departure date couldn't move. And apparently, neither could my graduation. There had been a long pause after they explained that. My mother tried to soften it. We'll celebrate when we get back, she said. Like graduation was something you could just reschedule emotionally. I remember staring out the window while she talked, watching a delivery truck back into the parking lot below my apartment. My brother's name came up a lot during that conversation. How proud they were. How exciting the trip would be. How rare these opportunities are. My graduation was mentioned too. Just not with the same weight. When the call ended, my father asked if I understood, and I said something that sounded calmer than I felt. Enjoy the view, I told him. Because you won't be seeing me again. He thought I was joking. I didn't correct him. The ceremony itself blurred together. Names, applause, a sea of caps shifting like waves. A professor from my department squeezed my shoulder after I stepped off stage. Your parents must be proud, she said. I nodded. It felt easier than explaining. Afterward, I found their seats and placed the diploma envelope across them. Then I walked out of the auditorium into the bright afternoon and didn't look back. Life moved quickly after that. 2 days later I packed my apartment. A week after that I started my new job in a city 3 hours away. Work had a strange kind of fairness to it. Effort led to results. People noticed when you did something well. Praise came without emotional history attached to it. Emails from my parents came occasionally. Photos from the Caribbean. Blue water. White sails. My brother smiling with wind in his hair. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted revenge. Silence just felt honest. 2 weeks after graduation, someone knocked on my apartment door. It was a quiet evening. I had just gotten home from work and was halfway through heating leftovers. When I opened the door, my father was standing there. He looked older than he had the last time I saw him. Sunburned across his nose. Tired in a way that didn't seem like normal travel fatigue. In his hand was a large envelope. The same envelope. My diploma. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he held it out slightly. They mailed it to us, he said. Someone at the university found it on the seats. I stepped aside and let him come in. He stood awkwardly in the small kitchen, glancing around like he wasn't sure what he was allowed to touch. The envelope stayed in his hands. You left before the end, he said quietly. Yes. He nodded like that made sense. For a while we just stood there. Then he said something I hadn't expected. The trip didn't really happen the way we thought. He explained that halfway between islands my brother had collapsed on the boat. Some kind of severe dehydration, combined with an infection they hadn't noticed earlier. They spent most of the trip dealing with hospitals and ferry schedules instead of beaches and sailing. The pictures my mother sent had all been from the first day. After that it was mostly waiting rooms. I listened without interrupting, not because the story excused anything, just because it was new information. Then he said something else. The university called us. That caught my attention. The dean, he continued. She said you'd been nominated for a departmental award. Apparently it had been announced after the ceremony ended. The dean had asked why no one from my family had been there. My father stared at the diploma envelope while he spoke. I didn't know what to say. He admitted. I could picture the moment clearly. A quiet office. An authority figure asking a simple question. Why weren't you there? And no explanation that sounded good enough out loud. He finally placed the envelope on the table. It felt heavier when I picked it up from those empty seats, he said. Like it was trying to tell me something I hadn't noticed before. I didn't respond. Not immediately. He didn't ask for forgiveness. Didn't try to justify the decision. Instead he said something that felt strangely honest. I've spent years celebrating your brother's adventures, he said slowly, but that dean's question made me realize I never stopped to notice when you reached the finish line. The room went quiet, not tense. Just open. He moved toward the door after a while. I should go, he said. If you still mean what you said on the phone. Before leaving, he turned back once more. When I saw those empty seats, he added, I finally understood what absence looks like from the outside. Then he left. 2. The apartment was silent again. The diploma envelope rested on the kitchen table beside a second sheet of paper, the award letter he had slipped out of his pocket before walking away. I sat down and looked at them for a long time. Outside, evening traffic moved slowly past the building. For the first time since graduation, I realized something unexpected. Distance and forgiveness weren't opposites. Sometimes they lived in the same quiet room. And for now, I wasn't sure which one I would choose.